and welcome to another lawnfawn video. It's Kelly here, and today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new stamp set, Backyard Bird Feeder, its coordinating dies, and its coordinating coloring stencils. We're also going to be introducing the Backyard Bird Feeder add-on stamp set with its coordinating dies and coloring stencils too. And these stamp sets are absolutely adorable together. I can't wait to show you so many cute cards with these. We're also going to be introducing our brand new tree branches backdrop, which we have in both a portrait style and a landscape style, and I love these backdrops so much. And we'll take a look at our brand new Stratus cloud stencil, which is so great for backgrounds. So let's go ahead and check all of this out. First up, we're going to take a look at the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set, and it has this gorgeous branch which is so great for helping set the scene for your adorable bird feeder. And for the bird feeder, you can put it on a post into the ground, and that's what this stamp here is for. Or you can also hang it from that beautiful branch. And so we have this cute little dotted line to be kind of like a little rope or chain that you're hanging the bird feeder from the branch from. And then, of course, for our bird feeder, we have adorable birds. And we have these birds in all different kind of flying, landing, etc., so that you can really create these fun scenes. I love this little guy with his wings up kind of landing onto the bird feeder. This flying bird is so gorgeous. This one here is already on the bird feeder and he's pecking at some seeds. I love this little guy here and how he's looking off to the side. And this little bird is so adorable too. And look at this guy. He is just adorable. I just love birds so much. And then, of course, what does a bird feeder need most of all? It needs a squirrel that's eating all of your bird seeds. So we have a super cute squirrel, and then we have these two little piles of bird seed that you can put at the bird feeder or on the ground for the squirrel to be eating. We have a cute little flower that you can add into your branches, and also some adorable music notes that you can stamp around the birds so that they can sing their sweet spring songs, which I think is absolutely adorable. And then we have these fun little mini phrases. We have I seed to tell you something, which just cracks me up. We have yum, which is perfect for both the squirrel and the birds. We have it's your bird day. Spring is in the air, because it sure is. And also what the peck, which is really cute for the little bird who's looking to the side to be looking at the squirrel and saying what the peck. It just cracks me up. Then we have these fun mix and match sentiments. So we have your seedsational or have a seedsational day or have a seedsational birthday. And I love that you can mix and match to create your own perfect phrase. And now that we stamped out all of the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set, we also have this Backyard Bird Feeder add-on, which gives you some extra little elements that you can add into your bird feeder scenes. So we have a different style of bird feeder. We have a cute little squirrel who's looking up, which is just adorable. And then we have these fun little flowers and grasses that you can have at the bottom to help set your scene for your squirrels, birds, and bird feeders. And some more fun phrases too. We have long time no seed. We have I love seeds, and also miss you. I love these little tiny phrases. They're so fun to stamp all around your critters. And we have You're So Crafty, which is perfect for the squirrel. Seeds the Day. Down Here, which also cracks me up for the squirrel, or even like a little bird that's sitting down on the grass. We have Chirp and also Chitter, perfect little sounds for both our birds and squirrels. And then we have some fun mix and match elements that are perfect for mixing and matching with the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set. So we have You're a Friend, and then you can mix it with the seedsational that's in the original Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set, and you can mix and match these in all sorts of different ways to be able to create your custom phrase. Then we also have the phrase seeds the day, which is so super cute. And then we have an exclamation point that you can add to the ends of your phrases. And so you could say your seedsational and add a little exclamation point onto that. So now that we've taken a look at the Backyard Bird Feeder and Backyard Bird Feeder add-on stamp sets, we're going to be adding some color to these adorable images. And right now I am using my Copic markers, but any markers that you may have, watercolor pencils, watercolor colored pencils, or also coloring stencils, which I'll be showing you in just a little bit, are perfect for adding color to these images. So first up here, I'm starting with this really pretty branch. And whenever I do branches or any kind of wood, I like there to kind of be some streaks because I feel like it gives it some texture. So I love these because they're so fun to color, and I make sure to not blend it too much so that I have those little streaks that gives it that beautiful wooden look. And then here I'm adding some green on to the leaves, and then next we're going to work on the bird feeder. And I love adding color to this bird feeder because it's so fun to add this bright pop of color onto your cards. I'm going to do yellow because yellow is my absolute favorite color, but I think this would be so pretty in a bright blue or like a fuchsia pink. I think it's just a fun way to add some happy color to a card to make someone smile. I decided to color the post the same color as the bird feeder so that it all kind of coordinates together. And now I'm adding some color into the bird seed. And you can see I'm adding a little bit more of a shadow down towards the bottom and then just using a darker brown for the seeds. And I'm going to use the same colors for the little piles of seeds that I have below so that everything coordinates nicely. For this cute little flower, I'm just going to use a nice peachy pink and some yellow for the center. And then for the birds, this is another fun place to add lots of color. I love doing bluebirds. I just think they're so pretty. We don't have a lot of bluebirds where I live, so maybe I want to just kind of like live in a moment where I might have some bluebirds flying around. And so here you can see I am using some blues and just adding a little bit of darkness towards the outside of the bird and then just kind of blending it out towards light towards their bellies. And then I realized that I didn't add a nice light blue here to the glass of the bird feeder, so I just did that and blended it out with a colorless blender. And then we'll add some orange for their beaks and or little pink rosy cheeks on them. Now for this bird here, I've brought in some BG, so some blue-green markers, just to give him a little bit of a different tone from the bluebirds, just to kind of add a little bit of a different look. I really like mixing and matching different colors of the bird, even if it's just different shades of blue, because I think it just adds a lot of color to the cards. And these little birds, I can't tell you how much fun these scenes are to create, like layering all your little birds down into the scene. It is just so much fun. It just makes me smile. So now here I'm actually going to take some grayish blues now. So you can see I'm using lots of different shades of blues, and I think this just looks so beautiful on a card. They still kind of coordinate together because they're all blues, but I think they look really nice just being a little bit different. And so I'm going to use these nice kind of grayish, almost purpley blues here on this little guy too. He cracks me up because to me he's looking over at the squirrel and just being like, I can't believe you're eating this birdseed again. And so now for this bird, I decided to do something totally different. I'm going to do kind of a pinkish red color, and I think that's really fun as well. And then, of course, we'll add a little bit of color to the belly. And so for the belly on this one, I did a little light blue, and on the blue bird, I did a little light pink, which I thought was really fun. And then for the squirrel, I always like using these E30 markers. I just think they look so pretty on the squirrel. And you can see there I'm blending out with the medium and then out into light, leaving it light around his face and belly, which I think looks super cute. And then for the seed, I'm going to use, of course, the same markers that I used earlier for the seeds in the bird feeder so that it all mixes and matches, coordinates together. Next up, we're going to add some beautiful color into the backyard bird feeder add-on. And I think this set is so much fun because it gives you more design elements with the backyard bird feeder. So it gives you this cool, different style of birdhouse, another little squirrel, and then all these little elements, which are so much fun. And so here you can see I'm using these BG markers, and this is like my new favorite combo now because this was a little dull. All I did was bring in this bright BG11 and just go right over it, and it brightened the whole thing up. And those markers together are like my new favorite. I'm using it all the time on everything now. And so here for this little part here, just like we talked about with the branch, I'm kind of making sure not to blend it out too much so that those uneven lines, it really makes it look like wood on the birdhouse. Now for this bird seed, I decided to use some yellow markers. I think that looks awesome too. So whatever colors you have in your stash, either some light browns or some yellows are going to look really great for the bird seed. Now we're going to add some color to the squirrel, and the squirrels in this set just crack me up. So I have a bird feeder at home, and it has a little camera, and it takes pictures of birds, except for mine really honestly just takes pictures of a squirrel, and he's adorable, so it's totally okay, but it cracks me up because there's always a squirrel at a bird feeder, and it just makes me laugh. I think it just makes the cards just so cute and sweet, and you know it's just going to brighten someone's day. So here for the flowers, it's another fun way to bring in some color into the cards is to just bring in these nice bright pinks or blues or purples, and the flowers I think is so pretty. And then here I'm going to add some color to the grass there, which I love for setting the scene. And now you can see the two sets together and how fun it is to mix and match all of these different elements. Now here are the coordinating dies for the backyard bird feeder stamp set, which you can bend apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate. And then all you need to do is take your die, line it up with your stamped image, hold it in place with some low tack tape, run it through the die cut machine, and you'll have perfectly cut out images every time. And here you can see all of the adorable images from this set, and they are so much fun to mix and match. So first up, we're going to try hanging the bird feeder from the branch, which is such a cute look. And then you can start adding in the other elements, like the little bird seed onto the bird feeder, and that little guy eating the bird seed, and birds flying around with cute little music notes, and a little squirrel at the bottom eating some bird seed from the ground. or you can add the bird feeder on to that little pole there and have it going into the ground. You can have a bird eating some bird seed on the ground, the birds flying around and sitting on the bird feeder. You can also make the bird feeder taller or shorter and just hide part of the pole behind it, depending on what look that you need for your card. You can also bring that branch in just to help set the scene, and I love the squirrel or the birds on the branch. I think it's such a cute look, and the squirrel on the bird feeder cracks me up so much. And then here are the coordinating dies for the Backyard Bird Feeder add-on, which you can bend apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate. Then all you need to do is line up the dies with your stamped images, hold it in place with some low-tack tape, run it through the die cut machine, and you'll have these perfectly cut out images every time. And here are all of the images from the add-on, and here is how you can mix and match it with the bird feeder stamp set. And so you can use the post from the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set and have this cute little birdhouse be on a post, and then use some of the grass and flowers included in the add-on to create your scene and that cute little squirrel as well. And then of course you can take the birds from the main stamp set and add them in, and I really love this style of bird feeder. I just think it's so cute. You can also take the other style and add it onto the post, but mix and match it with the other cute elements included in the add-on. And I love the two little squirrels interacting. Now you can also hang this other style of bird feeder from that same little chain and have it from the branch, and I think that's so cute too. It's such a fun way to create a different scene. Here I'm adding some little grass and flowers at the bottom and the little flowers with the birds at the bottom. And then of course you can mix and match all these cute elements, having the squirrel there, the little bird seed on the ground, and just bringing in as many birds as you can fit onto your card. You can also add the little piles of bird seed to the bird feeder here too, and I think the little birds with the music notes flying around are just so adorable. Now, earlier we talked about adding color to these images with the coloring stencils, and here they are. The Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set has a set of 3 coloring stencils, and all you need to do is just line them up with your stamped images and lightly brush on ink to add color to those images. It's so much fun and easy to do. All of the coloring stencils have etched guidelines, which make it really, really easy to line up with your stamped images. You can see you can just work your way down the stencil and keep adding in color to the different elements of each image, like the branch and then the leaves and then a different set of leaves so that you can do a different shade of green, which I think is really, really fun. Now these coloring stencils have coloring stencils for every single image in the stamp set. I'm just doing a couple images here to show you how they work, but they are just so much fun to do. When we designed the coloring stencils, we made sure to leave enough space so that you're never having to clean off the coloring stencil in between your images. There's enough space to add color onto each thing and just move on down. And that's one of my favorite things about them is I love like moving down each step of each image. I find it very relaxing. I just think it's really fun. So now we did the actual kind of details of the bird feeder, and now we're going to add in the bird seed. And what I like about this too is you could just do one color of ink, or here I did 2 colors. So I used some sunflower ink and then some number 2 pencil ink to add a little bit of a shadow, but just one color of ink looks amazing too. Now we're going to add some color to this cute little bird, so I'm going to add some blue onto the bird, and you can just keep building up the color, and you can see you can add a little bit of extra color onto the outside edges to get that really pretty shaded look. Now that we've done the coloring stencils for the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set, here is the Backyard Bird Feeder add-on. This is a set of 2 stencils, and you'll see that these ones are smaller, and the reason for that is that it is a smaller stamp set. We always size the coloring stencils to be the same size as the stamp set so that no matter how you store your stamp sets, it's really easy to store the coloring stencils in with them. Here we're going to do this cute little squirrel, and you can see we have the body separate from the tail so that you can add some fun little shading details onto both. And then now we can do this really cute little bird feeder as well. And so here I'm just building up the color, kind of making a little bit darker towards the bottom of the seeds and then lighter towards the top. And then you can go in and add some extra detail to those little individual seeds in there. I'm adding a nice light blue across the glass area. And then here I'm going to be using a nice teal color to add my fun details onto the house. You can do the roof a different color than this bottom part. You can really mix and match, or you can use the same color of inks. And so here you can see I'm adding a little bit of a darker ink towards the outside and lighter towards the center by using the same exact ink, just building up the ink on those edges. And then here I'm just going to add some color there onto kind of this little wooden part of this birdhouse, this bird feeder, and it is just looking so cute. I just love using the coloring stencils. They're so much fun. Now we have two brand new backdrop dies. This is our tree branches backdrop. It comes with a backdrop and also these little individual leaves that you can layer on top of this backdrop. I love this backdrop so much because it creates this beautiful scene not only for your bird feeders and your birds, but also for other things too. I can think of so many cute critters I can add onto here. You can also trim off some of the branches to get a different look, and I'll show you that a little bit later on in this video. So here you can see we layered on a bunch of the leaves, and I think it looks so pretty like this. Now we also have this tree branches backdrop in a portrait style. So depending on if you're looking at making a landscape card or a portrait card, you can do that. Now here we use a different color of brown cardstock. This is paper bag cardstock. And then for the leaves, we use some noble fir and also some algae cardstock. And so I love mixing and matching the different colors of green. Here we've layered cardstock. You can use pattern papers, or you can also use white cardstock and add color with inking or with markers. And we're going to be doing that in just a little bit. And so here is that portrait style. Now, next up, we're going to take a look at our Stratus cloud background stencil. I love these clouds so much. They're so beautiful. Here, I'm just going to be adding some ink onto them. And what I love about them is that you could do all of the clouds, you could just do a couple of them, or you could even shift the stencil over and like layer a bunch of clouds. You could use white paste with them. You could use glitter paste. You can use some white pigment ink on there as well. So these clouds are so much fun, and we're going to be showing you some different cloud techniques in just a little bit. But for right now, we're going to start working on a tree branches backdrop card, and we're going to be using the portrait style, and we're actually going to create a shaker card with this. It's going to be super fun. And so here I have the backdrop and also the little leaves that it comes with, and I'm going to be using my markers to add some color. You could use markers, you could use watercolors, you could use your ink and your blender brushes. There's so many fun ways to add colors to these, and I really like starting with white cardstock because I just think it's really, really fun to color in die cuts. I don't know why, I find it so relaxing. And so here you can see I'm just going to be taking out some markers. I'm using some E30 markers, and I'm just kind of scribbling my ink on there. I'm not trying to be too perfect. I'm just kind of scribbling at the bottom of the branches and then just blending it back and forth so that I can keep those kind of like lines in there that really make them look like branches. And so we're just going to keep doing this across all of the branches. You'll see I had my dark color there on the edges, and then I'm going to go in with my medium, and then I'll come in with the light marker. And so this actually goes pretty quick because I'm just kind of being messy and scribbly with it, and I just find it so much fun. So right here, I could have added color directly onto the leaves, and I'm actually going to do that for another card in just a little bit, but I really like the look of the layered leaves, so that's what we're going to do for this card. So we went ahead and die cut a bunch of these leaves out of some white cardstock, and we're going to add some green color to them. But first up, Miles brought Beetle. She is the cutest hedgehog ever, and she's going to help us add some color to these leaves. And so here, I'm just going to take some green markers, and any color greens would work. It was really whatever was on my desk, and I'm going to add a little bit of darker green at the bottom, and then just blend it out with a lighter green towards the top. And you can even mix and match your greens because I think that looks really pretty on the card. And so we're just going to add a color to these bunches of leaves, and then we can start to layer them onto the backdrop. And to do that, I like to take some liquid glue and just dab the liquid glue onto the leaves and then just layer the leaves on top. And it gives it this beautiful dimension. I think is just so pretty. And there's something really fun about just kind of working your way down this backdrop and layering the leaves on there. Just adding the little drop of glue and then adding another leaf. And here are our last couple of leaves. We're just going to layer those right onto the card. And here you can see our beautiful backdrop. I love these branches and leaves. And now we need some sky to go along with them. So we're going to use the brand new Stratus Cloud background stencil onto some white cardstock. And so I'm just going to layer that over my white cardstock. And I'm going to be using some merman ink here for my clouds. I love this color. I just think it's so pretty. And I'm just going right over those clouds. And I like when there's kind of darker parts of the clouds and lighter parts of the clouds. So you can just kind of play around, and I'm going to fill this whole sky with these clouds. Now, once I added these clouds, they were looking beautiful, but when I layered my backdrop over it, because I have the white frame, it was a little bit too light. So I decided to add some color into the sky with a lighter color of ink. This is kiddie pool ink, which is kind of like the lightest turquoisey color that we have. And so I'm filling in that whole background with the kiddie pool. And now you can see that there won't be such a contrast when we bring in our backdrop that has that white frame. And so here we're just going to layer that on. You can see how pretty that's looking. And then now we can take that backdrop and put it right over top. Now, for the backdrop, I wanted to show you how our stitched rectangle frames are a perfect match, and this is on all of our backdrops, so you can see that it layers right over top. I wasn't so careful with my coloring, so I'm going to die cut a white frame and layer that right over top. You could also do like a fun pattern paper or a fun color of cardstock too. I really wanted it to be a nice bright white just to give it that like fresh, springy feel, and I'm going to layer that over top. I also could have just been more careful with my coloring and I wouldn't have to layer the frame on top, but I was glad that I had that option. The next step for the shaker is to add our acetate piece to create the window. And so to do that, I really like using this nice strong tape because it really holds that plastic piece in place. And so I'm using some 1/8 inch tape here. We're going to go all the way around the edges. And then I'm also going to add some little pieces onto the branches just so that that'll give it some nice extra hold. So where there was like big enough areas, I added some and I added some small little ones onto some of the leaves. And then here I have a piece of acetate and I'm trimming that to be 5.5 by 4.25 inches, the standard size card side, and it's the size of the backdrop as well. And then we can peel up the liner paper and just layer that whole acetate piece onto the back of the backdrop. Now that we have the acetate on the back, we've created our shaker, and I wanted to decorate the front of it before we started to layer it with foam and onto a piece with all of our shaker bits. So here I'm going to take out the Backyard Bird Feeder stamp set and the Backyard Bird Feeder add-on, and I went ahead and stamped and colored a bunch of images from the set. So we have the two different squirrels, we have the bird feeder, and that little chain that you can hang the bird feeder from, and some cute little birds as well. And so I'm just going to be adding these on with some tape runner, and so I'm going to take this chain piece here, and we're just going to layer that right on top. And what I like about this piece and also the little stand that it can be on is that you can trim them down to be the perfect size for your card. So you can see here, I'm just kind of seeing where I want to put the bird feeder. I'm just going to trim that down and then I can layer that right on to my card piece. Then I can start to layer in some of the other pieces. And I just love these like tree branches. It's just such a fun backdrop for these cute little guys. And then we're gonna have some of the birds standing on top of the branches, which is so cute. This little guy is going to be eating the bird seed already, and he's got another little buddy who's just flying in. I like telling a little story of what's going on here. And then we have this cute little squirrel, and I'm actually gonna tuck him behind some of the leaves. I think that looks really, really cute here. And you can see that Miles is helping me kind of say where every little character should go. And then we're going to add another little squirrel on this other branch here, and they are like waiting for their birdseed. I think it's just so adorable and so fun. So now that we've added all of our little characters onto this, we can start to create the shaker. And to do that, I'm going to be using these foam strips and I'm actually going to double them up. So you can see here, I'm going to peel one up and I'm just going to stack it on top of the other one. I like to have some extra height for my shakers because I feel like it makes the shaker bits be able to move around a little bit better. And so by having that little extra height, I think it's so awesome. So I went ahead and just layered those two on top of each other. And now we can make our way all of the way around this frame. I love that it's got the frame there because it's the perfect place to put all of these foam pieces. And so I'm going to keep stacking pieces on top of each other and then layering them on to the back of this. Then we can peel up the liner paper, and I did that first and then realized, oh my goodness, I need to actually add my shaker things on there. So here I'm going to take out the Stratus cloud background that we stenciled earlier, and I'm going to add these fun little shaker bits all into the center. And so I'm just going to kind of layer them around and see like, oh, is that enough? Okay, I'll add some more. And then I can take this whole piece and then just layer that onto the background. The foam that we added is going to give the height for those little shaker pieces to move around, and that little cloud background, I think it looks so pretty in the background of this scene. I think it's just so magical. There's something like this perfect little garden with the perfect bird feeder in it. I just think it's so sweet. Now here I have a standard size card that's 5.5 by 4.25, and we're going to add some adhesive onto that and then layer our whole panel on top of the card base. And then the last thing we need is a sentiment. And to do that, we're going to do some heat embossing. So here we have some black licorice cardstock. We're going to prep that with an anti-static powder tool. And then we're going to take some of the phrases here and we're going to be stamping them out. And so here I love how you can put all the phrases together. So they have the same size rectangular base, so you can butt them up against each other and create custom phrases, whether it's have a sensational day or you're a sensational friend or have a sensational birthday. You can mix and match your perfect phrase. So we're going to stamp those in some clear embossing ink. We'll sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder. We can tap off any of the excess and then heat that up with the heat tool to create a nice bright white shiny sentiment. And then we're going to trim these down so that it almost looks like those kind of old school Dymo labels. And so you can use your paper trimmers, which is how I normally do it. Here, Rebecca's actually doing this, and she's really great with her scissors. So she's actually just going to use her scissors to trim them down. Anytime I cut with scissors, it's crooked. I don't know why. So I always use my paper trimmer. So you'll have to pick whatever your favorite thing is. You'll have to let us know in the comments if you guys are scissors for cutting down your sentiments or if you use your paper trimmers. And look at this. Oh, she did such a beautiful job. I always just have to use the trimmer. And so there we can go ahead and add some tape runner to the back of these and then layer it on to the card here. And so I'm just going to kind of layer it into the sky and then overlapping some of the leaves and kind of behind some of the leaves too, because I just think that's such a pretty look. And then we can layer this here, once again, kind of tucking it behind the bird feeder so that it kind of helps bring the sentiment into the scene. And now this card is all done. You can shake it up and have these cute little pieces all move around, which I think is so much fun. And this card just makes me smile. I love these little scenes. They are just adorable. So now that we've used the tree branches in the portrait style, I wanted to go ahead and use it in the landscape style. And we're going to be doing the same thing where we're going to cut it out of white cardstock and add color with markers. But I also wanted to show you how you can get different looks out of these tree branches by trimming off the branches to kind of give you some extra space. So in this case, I'm going to trim off this branch here and this other branch at the bottom. And that's going to give me space for a scene on the ground and having these branches above. So I love that it gives it like a totally different look. And so I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim that down, and you'll see that's going to look wonderful. And then we can go ahead and add some color to these with the markers. Now, last time I used some E30s, now I'm going to use some E40 markers. Any markers would work. You could also do things with colored pencils or ink blending, just like we talked about earlier. Now, just like I did before, you can see that I'm laying down kind of like the darkest marker along the bottom edges of the different branches, and then I blend it out with my medium, then my next medium down, and then the lightest. And I think that is such a pretty look. Now for this one, I took care to make sure that I didn't add any brown onto the leaves so that I could color them in with the green markers. So you could either layer the leaves or not, depending on whatever look that you're going for. And so there you can see I'm just kind of adding my darkest green and then my lightest green and kind of blending them out. And I think that's so pretty. Where the leaves overlap, you can see that I kind of add the dark marker and kind of trace the edge of the leaf and then blend it out to give it that nice little shadowed look. Now here you can see how pretty this backdrop is looking. Now, once again, I was a little messy with my coloring. I went into the edge of this little frame here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and die cut using the stitch rectangle frame, some white cardstock. I'm gonna add some liquid glue and layer that over top. Now next we need a sky, and so this time, just for a different look, I decided to use a different cloud stencil. This is the cloudy stencil, and I love this stencil. On each side it has a different style of puffy cloud, and so you can start onto the stencil and move onto your paper to create this really cool look. And so here you'll see I'm going to kind of line it up and then go onto the stencil, off onto the paper, and then I twist it to a different side and pick a different side, kind of line it up, and then I go onto it and then off. And now you can see what a beautiful background that's going to be for our tree branches backdrop. Now the next thing we need is some grass to help ground this scene. And so here I have some white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut that with the Grassy border die. I love this die. It's the grass that's just the perfect grass for every card. So I'm just going to die cut this little piece of white cardstock, and then I'm going to bring in some ink using some freshly cut grass ink here. And starting on the top of the grass and then moving my way down to the bottom. And you can see just how pretty this is. It gives it a nice soft look, and I feel like it goes along with all of that markering that we did earlier on to those branches. Before I start adding everything into the scene, I wanted to stamp my sentiment. I decided to just kind of layer everything because I didn't want to have any kind of pop. So I'm not gluing anything down, I'm just kind of layering them over into the scene so that I can kind of fit in my sentiment. And so I'm going to do "You're a sensational friend." And so I'm just going to be stacking them just like this. And that's the other thing I love about these sentiments is that you can stick them together for a long sentiment or you can do something fun stacked like this. And so that's what I'm going to do right here. And then I'm going to pick it up with a block and I'm going to stamp in some merman ink, which is the same ink that I use for the clouds. I think it's going to be really nice, almost like the sentiment is kind of written in the clouds or something. And so I'm going to go ahead and stamp this down first so that I don't have anything on pop dots in the way of my stamping. So now that I've got my sentiment on there, I can start working on everything else. So for the grass, I'm going to add that on with some tape runner so that it's nice and flat against the scene. But then for the backdrop, I like adding some foam because I feel like it feels almost like a little shadow box. I think it's just such a fun look. So I added some foam all around the edges and a couple onto the branches and leaves just to give it some nice support. And then we can layer that over this background. And I think this just feels like so fresh and so springy. Like I can hear the birds chirping just looking at this. I think it's just so fun. Then we're going to bring in the backyard bird feeder stamp set and the add-on, and I'm going to take those images that we stamped and colored and die cut at the beginning of the video, and we're going to start layering these into the scene. And so this time I want to use the add-ons bird feeder, but I'm going to use the little pole there so that it's going to be into the grass, and I love kind of tucking that into the die cut grass. I think that's such a cute look. The other thing I love about the pole is that you can make the bird feeder as tall or as short as you need for your scene. And so this one, I needed it to be fairly short. So I'm going to add some adhesive onto that, and then we can go ahead and layer the bird feeder right on top of that, and then we can tuck that in to the grass. Now I realized I still had it a little bit too tall, so I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim that just a little bit shorter. And now I can add some foam squares onto there. And I added foam squares to the bird feeder, but just did some adhesive for the pole so that I could tuck it behind the grass, and it has some nice dimension that way. Now for that little bird, I decided to add him with some tape runner, and then for this one, I used some foam squares so that there was some nice, beautiful dimension onto the card. I'm also going to layer in the bird seed and then add this cute little guy like pecking onto the bird seed. I think it's so cute, and I love the pop of red with this bird on the card. Now, these little flowers from the add-on are some of my favorites. I just love them. And so I went ahead and colored some more of those, and I'm going to tuck some behind the grass and some in front to kind of help set the scene. And then, of course, every bird feeder scene needs a cute little squirrel. And so we're going to layer this guy at the bottom, looking up at that little bird, enjoying his bird seed, hoping a little might fall down to the ground. And here I have a standard size card base that's 5.5 by 4.25. I'm going to add some adhesive onto that, and then we can layer the whole panel on top. And now this card is all done. I had such a blast making this card. I love it so much. And I love that you can cut away some of those tree branches to get a totally different look, which is so much fun. So here we left all the branches, and here we have less, and we have the two different types of bird feeders, which is so fun. And in this next card, Shari's going to combine both the bird feeders and bring in the It's a Bird mice. It is so cute. So take it away, Shari.
So on my card today, I am featuring the backyard bird feeder set and the backyard bird feeder add-on because I like both of these bird feeders. And I'm also going to be using this cute little mouse from It's a Bird. So I wanted to create a card that uses multiple bird feeders on the same card because in my yard, I have lots of bird feeders. So I'm starting out with some seafoam spiffy speckles pattern paper, and I am going to cut this down to 4.25 by 5.5 so that it fits on the front of my card. I'm going to do some stenciling with the new Stratus Cloud background stencil, so I'm just using some removable adhesive to stick my pattern paper down to my mat. Then I will line up my stencil, and I'm just going to hold this in place with a little bit of tape. Now I'm going to make kind of a tone-on-tone background with the clouds. So I'm using some merman ink and my blending brush, and I'm just going to go all over and blend in these clouds very lightly on the background. I don't want it to be too busy because I'm going to have these bird houses and all the birds, but this tone-on-tone cloud will give me a nice subtle cloud pattern in the background. I also like that blending on the spiffy speckles paper makes it already nice and speckled. So that's looking pretty good, but I also wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to these clouds. So I am using some fairy dust stencil paste, and I'm not actually filling in the whole stencil, I'm just pulling this across it very lightly, trying to get the most of the glitter kind of on the tops of those little cloud poofs, and then I'm just pulling it down into the cloud a little bit. So it's kind of messy as far as stenciling goes, but since I already have the ink underneath, we already have the shape of the cloud. And I'm not worrying about those two at the bottom because they're going to get covered up with some paper along the bottom. So I'll just sit this aside to dry and immediately go and clean my stencil paste off of my stencil and my work surface. So now that my panel has dried and that stencil paste is nice and dry, I'm just adding adhesive all over the back of this panel, and I will stick this down to a card base. And I'm making sure it's stuck down really well so that it's nice and flat, especially since I used that paste on the paper. Now I can move on to what is going to go along the bottom. So I have some green spiffy speckles paper here, and I'm actually going to cut these with the Puffy Cloud border dies, but I'm not making clouds. Today I'm making some hedges. So the bird feeder is going to kind of pop up from between the hedges, and so is my little mouse who's bird watching. But before I start cutting that border die, I do want to go ahead and stamp my sentiment right along the bottom. And I am using stamps from both the Backyard Bird Feeder and the add-on to spell out the sentiment that says you're a seed-sational friend. And I'm just going to stamp this in some black ink right along the bottom of this green strip. Now this is cut to 4¼ wide, so it is the width of my card. And now that I have this sentiment here, I can kind of see where I need to put that border die to cut the top of this front hedge. And I was going to use this big cloudy one, but I decided to go with the medium-sized one. And I want to layer my hedges one in front of the other, so now I'm just going to stack the one I've cut in front of my other piece, and I can kind of use that as a guide to see where to cut the back hedge. And I'm using the smallest cloud border in this set, and I'm just lining that up where I want it to be. I'll hold it in place with a little bit of low tack tape and run that through the die cut machine. And now I have two little hedges of bushes for my little mouse to hide in and my bird feeder to come out of. I am going to do some ink blending on the top edge of both of these using a little bit of celery stick ink. This just gives them a nice defined edge, and it will make each of these little hedges stand out from the one that is in front or behind it. So once I get a little bit of ink along the top, I'll stack these back together and you're going to kind of see how they stand out a little bit more. Now this is going to go on our card. So I'm going to start by putting this larger piece that's in the background directly onto the card base. I'm using liquid glue along with my tape runner because I know some of this is going over that stencil paste. So I just want to make sure it's stuck down really well. Now for the one in the front, I want this one popped up a little bit, so I'm going to add a strip of foam adhesive right along the bottom. And I'll just line this right along the bottom of the card, and now that front hedge has a bit of dimension from the one behind it. Now I can start to assemble my scene. I'm going to start with the branch that goes at the top. This has some thin foam strips on it so it can be popped up, and it overhangs the side, so I'll just trim the edge of that branch off. Now I do have two bird feeders that I'm going to put on this card. So I have this little red house-shaped one and the yellow one. I do want to go ahead and add a couple elements to each of these. So I'm adding the little bird eating the seed to that red bird feeder. On the yellow bird feeder, I'm going to add the pile of seeds. This is the big pile of seeds. I just love these little piles that you can add to the outside edge of the bird feeders. I think that's so much fun. And then, of course, I have this little squirrel stealing one of the sunflower seeds. And I'm just going to add him to the edge of the yellow bird feeder. So the yellow bird feeder is going to be on the post coming up from between the hedges. Luckily, I don't have to worry about trimming off this post because I can hide whatever length I don't need behind my bird feeder. So I'm just going to glue that down with the end of it kind of down between those two hedges that I cut. And then I can add my bird feeder with the squirrel directly to the background. Now I felt like the branch is popped up so it's more in the foreground, and that's what I'm going to do with the little red bird feeder as well. I thought I had a little more space. I didn't want it overlapping the tail of the squirrel too much, so I'm going to push this up a little higher than I thought. So I need to pull off some of the foam underneath that branch and just glue that directly down to the bird feeder. There is also the little string that it hangs from, and I'm going to glue that to the branch so it looks like it's wrapped around the branch. And once that glue dries, I'll just trim off the excess so that it stops on the branch. You could also have it go up off the card if you wanted to. That would also be a pretty fun look. So I have these other little robins that I've colored here. This guy is going to be on top of the yellow bird feeder, just kind of hanging out, probably wondering why the squirrel is eating all his seed. And then, of course, we have our little mouse who is loving all the bird watching. He is hiding in the shrubs down here, checking out these birds and the squirrel on the bird feeder. So I can trim off the rest of the little hanger string at the branch. I do have a third little bird. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted him to go. I decided he's going to go up high since he's flying. At one point, I thought about putting him down with the little mouse, but I don't think they know he's spying on them. So I'm adding that to the branch at the top, and then it was a little empty right above my mouse, and so of course some little guava hearts are the perfect thing to fill in a little bit. I also had a little bit of a smudge from my glitter on my clouds right there, and so that's just an opportunity to embellish with some hearts. So these are the smallest hearts from the Hearts and Stars Skinny Tag Die cut from Guava Cardstock, just adding them with a little bit of liquid glue. And of course, that is a perfect opportunity to add some stickles glitter. I didn't add glitter anywhere else because my clouds have glitter. And here is my finished card with the two bird feeders, and I just think it turned out so cute.
Oh my goodness, Shari, this card is so cute, and I love how you added the little bird watching mouse. Oh my gosh, it just makes me smile. So now we're going to create a super quick and simple card using the leafy tree backdrop. And so we've been doing a lot of coloring with markers on it, but now we're actually just going to use cardstock. So we have some paper bag cardstock for the background, and then we have noble fir and also some algae cardstock for the leaves. We're just going to add some liquid glue onto the leaves, and then we can layer those little individual leaf pieces right on top. You can see just how beautiful that looks. Now here we have some spiffy speckles paper, and there's kind of the side that has more color, and this is the side that's white with the blue speckles on it, and we're just going to add a little bit of inking along the edges. So right now we're inking with some merman ink, and I love this look because it's going to give that nice white glow towards the center, but it adds a little bit of dimension coming in from the edges. So adding some inking to some pattern paper is such a pretty look. Then we're going to take some foam tape and we're going to layer that all along the edges and also onto the branches too to give it some nice pop. And then we can layer it onto that piece of Spiffy Speckles pattern paper that we added some inking to. And you can see how the little blue coming in from the edges of the backdrop just looks like such a pretty glow. Now here we have some spiffier speckles paper that has the gold foil and then also some noble fir cardstock that's going to match those leaves. And we're going to add some liquid glue to the back of the one that has that awesome gold foil on it. And then we're going to layer it onto the solid color cardstock, shifting it over just a little bit so that it has this nice little shadow with the darker cardstock. And I think that's such a pretty look. Then we can add some adhesive to the back of that and then layer that onto this backdrop. I love backdrops like this in the background and then a big bold sentiment. You could do happy spring, you could do a happy birthday. There's so many different ones that you could add on there, and I think it's just so cute. Then here we have the backyard bird feeder stamp set, and we went ahead and colored some of the birds from this. And in this case, we're just going to be using the birds, which I think is so super cute. And so we can add some foam squares to the back of these birds and then just layer them in to the scene. And so here you can see they're just flying around the happy spring words, which I think is so adorable. Now, a lot of our stamp sets have these cute tiny little phrases or tiny little elements. So we're going to be using some of the tiny phrases and also some of those tiny music notes. I like stamping these directly onto my card, or sometimes I like using our different speech bubbles from our All the Speech Bubbles stamp set to add those phrases in. That turns out super cute as well. But in this case, we're just going to stamp the phrase there, spring is in the air, and then all of these cute little music notes are going to go all around as if the birds are singing. And I think this is just so sweet. And adding in these little stamped elements, I feel like makes the whole card. It just makes it feel so special. Then here we have a standard size card base that's 5.5 by 4.25. We're going to add some tape runner onto that and then layer this panel on top. And now this card is all done. It's super simple and so super cute. I just love it and it just makes me smile, and it's just a fun and different way to use those cute little birds too. Now, next up, we have some incredible cards for the design team. They are going to blow you away. And this card by Elena, oh my gosh, that rainbow inked background, I am in love with it. I can't wait to make a card just like it. This card here by Grace is so beautiful. I love the colors that she used and how she added all of those flowers towards the bottom. It's just beautiful. This card by Audrey is so super cute, and I love those little squirrels at the bottom of the bird feeder saying, down here. This card by Yanea is just so beautiful. She used some white pigment ink over a beautiful ink background with the Stratus Stencil to create the most beautiful look for her bird feeder. Maureen creates the most stunning slimline cards, and this one's so perfect. It's a great way to be able to feature both of the bird feeders. This one here is hanging up from the branches, and then down at the bottom we have the one that's been overrun by the squirrels. I just think this is just so cute. This card here has the bird feeder up in the air with the beautiful stitched windy detail. I love the two branches and the little squirrel in the branch too. And then here, Mindy used the backdrop in a totally different way. It's this super cute moon scene, which I think is absolutely adorable, especially featuring those cute Simply Celebrate critters. Here, Megan is giving you a fun little peek at our brand new interactive die pull and slide surprise. I love this scene so much, and as you pull, you get this fun dimension and this surprise of a whole nother scene below, which is so sweet. This card here by Elise is so much fun. I love how she added birthday hats onto all the birds. It just makes me smile. And then this card here by Tammy is so fun. She used all of the branches from the backdrops to create a slimline, and I think it's so beautiful. Here is the shaker card that inspired me to make mine today. I just love all those little shaker bits in there. And then this card here by Mindy is so fun. She brought in our It's a bird watching mice, and they are a perfect match to this stamp set. This card by Letitia is so beautiful. I love the blue colors that she used. I think it's just stunning. And here Melissa Mann has this really fun card. I love her beautiful watercolor background and all of the different colored birds. So we cannot wait to see all of your bird feeder cards, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!